What's up, college football fans? Welcome back to Aim Up College Football. I'm JC, and in today's video, I'm going to give you guys my predictions for the 2023 season. We're going to first go through and rank every single team here in the preseason from number 25 through number 1. And then what we're going to do is we're going to break down each of those teams, their offense, their defense, their coaching staff, and any changes that were made to any of those three areas over the course of the offseason. After we break down those three areas for each team, I'm going to then give you guys my record prediction for each and every team. At number 25, we have the Auburn Tigers. In Auburn, Alabama, the Hugh Freeze era begins after 2 years of Bryan Harsin being the head coach. Freeze is no stranger to the toughest conference in America, as he spent 6 seasons at Ole Miss prior to coming to Auburn. Playing in the toughest division in college football is no easy task. Just ask Bryan Harsin. Over the past 2 seasons, Auburn posted an 11-14 record. However, Auburn is one of the few jobs in America that has proven it has all the resources needed to win a national championship. Under Hugh Freeze's leadership, the Tigers made significant improvements to their roster through the portal and significantly upgraded the coaching staff this offseason. In the world of college football, stars matter. These are blue chippers. These are the most talented prospects in the country and make up the backbone of any national championship football roster. Back in 2013, Bud Elliott from 24/7 Sports introduced us all to a very interesting new stat, the blue chip ratio. Simply put, it's the percentage of scholarship players that are 4- and 5-star athletes. Elliott made a bold claim whenever he introduced us to this statistic in 2013. He claimed that in order for a team to have the baseline talent needed to win a national championship, they had to have at least 50% of their scholarship players be blue chip athletes. In 2023, only 16 teams made the cut. Teams like Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia are all boosting over 70% blue chip ratios this season. You go to the very bottom of that list, though, of teams with a blue chip ratio above 50%. You'll find the Auburn Tigers sitting at number 16 at 51%. Don't let a disappointing year last year deceive you, though. Auburn has one of the most talented rosters in the nation, and this is illustrated by the fact that they're one of the 16 teams with enough talent to win the title this year. Recruiting results matter, and Auburn knows this. The rest of college football better watch out because the Tigers are on the prowl in 2023. We're not quite sure who is going to be at the helm of the Tigers offense in 2023, but we do know it's going to be one of 2 players. It's either going to be Robbie Ashford, the returning starter from last year, or the Michigan State transfer Payton Thorne. Payton Thorne didn't commit until after the spring game this year, so we didn't get to see any footage of him playing then. Hugh Freeze hired a new offensive coordinator this offseason, Philip Montgomery, and together, Freeze and Montgomery are looking to implement an RPO-based offense. This is excellent news for the experienced transfer Payton Thorne, as this really fits his play style. And with his Big Ten playing experience, he's currently our favorite here at Aim Up to win the job. The Tigers recruited a trio of potential contributors from day one in the transfer portal this year. At left tackle, they got Dylan Wade from Tulsa. At center, they got Avery Jones from ECU. And at the right tackle, they got Gunnar Britton from Western Kentucky. Plus, they also got Jaden Muskrat, another Tulsa transfer who looks to add some much-needed depth on the offensive line this year. The Tigers did lose Tank Bigsby. They are bringing back one of the better rushers in the SEC, Jarquez Hunter, who has a career average of 6.5 yards per carry, and he's been known to rip off some big ones. The receiving core already was a pretty decent unit for Auburn, but they added even more length in the offseason. They added 6'4" tight end transfer Rivaldo Fairweather from FIU and 6'6" receiver Nick Mardner from Cincinnati, and also several other notable pass catchers will be joining the Auburn offense this year from the transfer portal. If we turn our attention to the defensive side of the ball, 2022 was amongst the worst seasons in school history for Auburn. It was the 3rd most points per game that they had ever allowed in school history. And the new DC, Ron Roberts, is looking to change that. He comes from the coaching pedigree of Dave Aranda, who was previously the defensive coordinator at LSU whenever they had their legendary run in 2019. And he's currently the head coach of the Baylor Bears. Things are looking promising for Auburn on that end. They do return everybody in their secondary. That was actually one of the few highlights for Auburn defensively last year. Generally, whenever you think of a team that gives up a lot of points, you think of them having a weak secondary. But this wasn't necessarily the case. Freeze is going to have his work cut out for him trying to revive a program that Brian Harsin buried even further after those last couple years under Gus Malzahn. But they did finish 5-7 last season and miss a bowl game for the first time since 2012. I don't expect that to happen again this year under Coach Hugh Freeze. I'm actually a big believer in Coach Freeze myself. That being said, Hugh Freeze does have a difficult task on his hands. And it'll be really interesting to see how things shake out in year one for Hugh Freeze over at Auburn. Auburn kicks off the 2023 season with a game against Massachusetts. This is going to be the home opener for Auburn, and I expect them to take care of things fairly easily. Cal, in week 2, could be a little bit tougher of a game for Auburn. I do still expect them to pull out ahead, and I think that this new offensive system, the new RPO system, is going to allow for much more production, and that defense, I think, is going to be able to handle the Cal offense. But Cal is a tricky team, and this could be a potential spot where Auburn loses a game. But I'm going to go ahead and take the Tigers in this one. Samford, I'm going to take Auburn. Not much else really needs to be said about that. I do have Auburn losing in week 4 to Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is going to be one of the teams that makes the biggest jump this season. Really surprise a lot of people. I'm not too sure if it's going to be because of that Bobby Petrino hire or if they're more just going to figure things out internally and that was something more to, appease the boosters and stuff. It remains to be seen, right? But I do think A&M is going to be better than they were last year. Weeks 4 and 5 are a very tough stretch for the Tigers. They play at Texas A&M, and then they come back home to host Georgia before their bye week. And I don't really see the Tigers winning either of these games, honestly. Texas A&M is a team who I expect to be one of the most improved teams in the country, and Georgia is looking to be the first team since Minnesota in the 30s to three-peat. Auburn's just getting their rebuild started, and though I am a big believer in Hugh Freeze, I think that both the programs of Texas A&M and Georgia are steps ahead of where Auburn is right now. Georgia much more so, A&M closer to their level, but I still think they're about half a step to a full step above where Auburn's going to be in 2023. In week 6, Auburn has their much-needed bye week before coming to LSU. I don't believe that they're going to be able to beat the Tigers this year. They kept it fairly close in the first half last year, and it was actually one of the better games of the season. But this year, I think LSU is just going to be loaded, like absolutely loaded offensively. And I actually believe LSU is going to be a national title contender, have a blue chip ratio above 70% this year. So keep your eye out for the LSU Tigers. Unfortunately, that's going to be 3 losses in a row for the Auburn Tigers, though. So in weeks 8 and 9, the Auburn Tigers played both the Mississippi schools. I've been splitting these games. I'm not exactly sure which way it's going to go. It could be Mississippi State ends up beating them because of Will Rogers and their quarterback play. I think that this game would have to be a shootout. I don't think anybody's getting any stops in this game, if I'm being completely honest. It's kind of the same situation in Ole Miss. Expect a high-scoring game there as well. I think Auburn's going to split these games, and I personally have Auburn beating Ole Miss in week 8 and then losing to Mississippi State in week 9. And then they host Vanderbilt and Arkansas in back-to-back weeks. I think that the Tigers also split these games. Arkansas's bringing back KJ Jefferson, one of the more underrated teams in the SEC last year. They had a fantastic start to the season, but kind of fell off as KJ got injured. He never really got fully healthy. So if he comes back to his former self this season, I expect the Hogs to actually be a very good team. The SEC West is deep this year. Like in week 12, Auburn's going to take care of business against New Mexico State. And then the Iron Bowl. I believe this is going to be a very close game. I've seen a lot of people actually taking Auburn to upset Alabama this year. I personally don't think they're quite ready. I think Alabama is going to come out this year with a new fire lit under them, and Coach Nick Saban is going to lead the Tide to victory against Auburn. And that's going to end up with Auburn going 6-6 overall, 2-6 in the SEC. So, slight improvement from last season, winning one more game and getting that bowl bid. Honestly, this is more the result of a very hard schedule and being in the toughest division in college football. Luckily, next year for Auburn, there will be no East and West in the SEC, right? Everybody's just going to kind of play everybody on that rotating basis, like how we've seen. And I expect that they should win more games going forward because of that. They won't have to play LSU and Alabama and Georgia every year. Auburn, they've got a gauntlet this year. They got a gauntlet every year. I think they're going 6-6. But at the same time, I still believe that they are one of the better teams in the nation and that they deserve to have a spot in the top 25 in the preseason.